into the Q code. Your curiosity quest starts here.
Hey, welcome in everybody to another episode of the Q Code Podcast. Danny, Travis, and Alan here, and we welcome you in. And thank you to everybody who listened to our last episode about which cinematic universe would you or would you not like to live in. And if you haven't listened to it, you can go back and... I mean, it's not like you need to listen to that one before you listen to this one, because
there's a very
there is no
specific,
continuity.
If you don't know which cinematic universe you're going to live in, there's no way you can know what we're going to talk about today.
Exactly.
But I know this is like a random thought before we get into our awesome intro question that you came up with, Trav, but you know how we've always called them Q-coders? Which is awesome.
I don't know if we've always called them that. Like, we've called them that on occasion.
Our listeners, the Q-coders. But I also thought, what about Q-Code Nation? No.
I mean, sure. If we had a nation of Q-coders, sure.
Oh, yeah. We would call them Q-Coder Nation.
No.
All right. Let's get into it.
Yeah, we do have a good episode again every week. But this week, I mean, we are getting into that time of year. It's October, feeling a little spooky. Not that this is necessarily like a Halloween episode or anything like that, but we're kind of getting into those type of themes this month. And this week, we are going to be talking about Bigfoot. Now, a lot of people talk about Bigfoot, but our focus today is not necessarily on what we believe, but as you'll notice, there's not a lot of pictures and footage about Bigfoot flying around out there.
There are, but not a lot of clear pictures.
Let's get that clear, pun intended. I don't know if that was a pun.
Yeah.
Play on words. Anyway.
What is a pun day? Sunday pun day?
Yep. So we're going to be talking about that today on, are Bigfoot real, but and why can we not find them? Because where are they?
So like Trav said, it is. Yeah, it's a little more of a focus on maybe our reasons that we found that could explain why there isn't a lot of evidence of a Bigfoot, and or just going into kind of our thoughts on the psychology behind Bigfoot. Not so much Bigfoot itself and his psychology, but or his or her. Because we don't want their psychology.
Well,
but yeah,
since we haven't even found one, how are we going to have any Bigfoot psychology? Like there's a course in the psychology for Bigfoots.
They need help too, marital help.
Hey, I'll have you know. I mean, before we get in, obviously we're going to get into this a lot more. We do have a quick question to get to, but. I think in the documentary that we all watched, they did talk about how somebody was petitioning for their, for Bigfoot rights. Is that in there? Or is that something else I read?
I'm trying to remember. Was that in there?
If it was at the very beginning. I can't remember, but somebody was petitioning.
I think I remember something
Bigfoot,
about that.
Rights, personal rights for Bigfoot.
Because they should have rights too.
Well, yeah. If
just because you have big feet, Trav.
I have big feet and I have rights. So, but anyway, let's get to the quick question first. Now, this was a question that came to me a little bit ago. My wife actually found this through, I don't know, I think it was just a post on Facebook, but it got me thinking. And I've thought about this before, but the question is, could you survive if swallowed whole by a whale? So I have the answer, and I have a lot of information for you guys, but I'll just turn it over to you first.
So,
what do you think?
Typically,
when do we play the sounder?
Oh, we do have a sounder.
Yeah, that's right.
Let's go to that. All right. Yeah.
So, do you like music, Trav?
Yes.
Do you like songs?
Yes.
Do you like whales?
Would that not be like the same thing? Music and songs. Yes.
That was a whale song. So I bet you loved it.
It was wonderful.
So, but what I was saying before we did the awesome sounder was basically, typically Trav, if he would have come up with a question like this, I would have probably gone and researched it. But I asked him personally, I said, hey, do you want me to look into this, or is this something you want me to come in blind? And I don't know if you did any research on it or if you came in blind as well.
I'm blind.
Okay.
Blind is the best.
So, yeah, we don't have any clue the information and the knowledge that Trav's about to drop on us.
Well, yeah, but I was just curious what your like original thoughts are. Like, because like when I've thought about it, we've all seen Pinocchio, and he gets swallowed by that
Giant
friggin'
That's
whale.
what it
whale.
is. Because I was just about to say, like, isn't there some show where
It's Pinocchio. And
in
Whale
the
stomach.
group me, I said to you, Alan, just like in Pinocchio.
Well, I didn't understand what the hell you were talking about then.
but him and so Geppetto survives in there for a long time before Pinocchio finds his way in there.
He like camps out.
Yeah.
But,
Him and his goldfish and his freaking cat just chilling out in that monstro's mouth.
Yeah. So here is like my initial thoughts on it. So I thought about it as far as like I just sat there quietly for a moment and I said to myself, what would happen if I was swallowed by a whale? And so these are just like the few little thoughts or notes that I had to put down. But basically I figured if I was swallowed by a whale, the only way that I would survive being swallowed by a whale would, and this is assuming I'm swallowed whole, right?
That's
And
what I
not,
said.
like,
Yeah, swallowed
chewed
whole.
up or something. But is if something were to happen to the whale, like basically immediately after I was swallowed. So like the whale was like blown up and I
You just happen to not be blown up with the whale.
or like it somehow was like disemboweled or something, like within moments of it swallowing me or something like that. But basically the reason that it needs to be fairly quick is I'm assuming that whales have stomachs that are much like human stomachs, but just bigger would be my assumption. I don't know. This is what I guess. And if so, I'm assuming it's not like this cavernous area that is depicted in Pinocchio where Geppetto's like hanging out with his
He's just got
ship
his,
and his
he's just in on his boat.
yeah, just chilling in there.
They just wait for him to eat so they can catch some fish.
Yeah. So, but then I'm assuming I'll have to deal with like stomach acids. So if I'm in there for very long, I will just dissolve basically until I'm just bones. So like this has to happen fairly quickly. Otherwise, yeah, I'm going to just be digested would be my guess.
Well, and on top of that, I think before any of that even kills you, you're just going to asphyxiate. There's no oxygen in there. There's no air.
And I agree with that.
They don't even
blowhole.
But they don't even breathe through their mouth, so it's not like any oxygen could even like maybe get to their stomach. It's the blowhole that they breathe through.
Yeah.
Which isn't even
no, and
connected.
actually I did think of that too, and that's another reason that I would assume that I would need to get out right away. But with that said, I guess
mention
you could
couldn't
have
light
you could
a
throw
fire
it,
like you guys said in
yeah,
Pinocchio.
You could throw in the
All you got to do is just make them sneeze.
you could throw in the element of like, say you were swallowed by the whale, but you were like scuba diving, so you had like an air tank on, and then maybe at that point you could at least survive for a little while, still breathing, but meanwhile you're just being digested. So,
Well, then if you're going to blow holes in my theory, I'm going to blow holes in yours. Because
How many
if
times
you were
can
a
we say
scuba
blow
diver,
hose?
you were a scuba diver, wouldn't you have on like a wetsuit and all that that's going to protect your skin from the acid?
for so long, but even your tank will be eventually dissolved.
No.
If it
Those
dissolves,
wetsuits-
maybe it'll blow up.
Wetsuits, like haven't they caught sharks that they've cut them open and there was like a wetsuit still in their stomach?
Maybe.
Or
Maybe.
part of a wetsuit or like rubber things.
But sharks are fish. We're talking about mammals.
Okay, they still have the same types of...
Anatomy.
Sharks have
juices.
stomachs.
I'm just kidding. I just tried to throw Alan off. But
Well, how about this? Why don't I tell you
what
the
is
story?
the real answer?
So, it's got a little bit, but so back in 1891, there were actually reports that came out that a man was swallowed by a sperm whale. So, like, I think when a lot of people are thinking of this, at least in my head, like the largest mammal is actually a blue whale, right? Which you feel that would be the one that, like, if you're going to be swallowed, maybe that's your safest bet. But I guess
sperm
like,
whale has like a bigger mouth, right?
So yeah, the sperm whale has a bigger mouth, and so that would be like the ideal one if you were going to be swallowed whole.
Well,
but
do blue whales or don't some whales? I think blue whales do. Like they don't eat big things. They just like they have like that.
They just
weird,
suck in the plankton.
They have that weird mesh in their mouth, like a net thing, dragnet type thing that just like filters out all the plankton and stuff.
Yeah.
yeah,
So you couldn't really even get swallowed by that.
so
I
there.
think sperm whales are the same way too.
No.
Do they eat meat?
Just hold on.
Okay.
Let's just get through this here. So, the reports came out that a man was swallowed by a sperm whale, and although survived, he was never the same again. So the story is told that the man, whose name is James Bartley, was swallowed when a whale attacked his ship. He wasn't retrieved until the following day when his crew found and killed the whale. But when they brought it on board, they cut the whale open. They found an unconscious but a very alive James Bartley. However, his face and arms were bleached white, and he was blind, courtesy of the whale's stomach acids.
Oh, so he does have stomach acid.
As the years went by, though, people began poking holes in his story.
So wait, back up a little bit. I apologize. How long was he in there?
A day.
Okay, so 24 hours.
Yeah. So, the questions that they're asking, like, wouldn't the stomach acids do more than just bleach his skin? Like, I mean, he's not the Joker. He falls into a vat of acid and just has a white face and just a big old smile. Yeah, like that.
He comes out with a big old smile.
Let's put a smile on that face. But because of now, the times and, science is a thing that we have.
Science.
And which can help us get to the bottom of this conundrum. So here's the story, or here's why the story is most likely a myth. So if you did get swallowed, the first obstacle would be to actually get past its crazy array of teeth. Each tooth is approximately 20 centimeters long, which is about the size of an average chef knife. And they have about 40 to 50 of them. So,
like, are they sharp teeth?
They're pretty sharp. They're not like shark teeth. They do come to a point, but they're like spaced out too. So, I mean, they're probably eating like fish.
So they have stuff. So sperm whales are like gap tooth.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you do get past the teeth, if by some miracle you do that, you'll have to make it down the throat. And so not only in that situation would it be dark and slimy, I mean, that's flipping gross. You're going down the throat of a whale. But there would be lack of oxygen and an increase in methane gas. So as you'd continue your way down the throat, you'd also get the fun sensation of the hydrochloric acid eating away at your skin. So even before you get to the stomach, it's already happening.
Which they explain it as fun?
No, that's what I threw in there.
Oh. That fun sensation of the acid eating away at you.
I was being a little
facetious.
facetious.
How do you say it? Facetious?
Facetious. Yeah. But so as impossible as it seems to make it through the throat, the next stop is the whale's first and largest stomach, because a sperm whale actually has 4 stomachs. So you go into the first one, and just like everywhere else, you're going to have a bunch of stomach acids just eating away. So let's just say that like you're just bathing in that for a minute, and then all of a sudden you're just shoved into another stomach, and then bathe in that and shoved into another and another. By the time you're at the 4th stomach, you're pretty much just going to be a pile of bones, which at that point you are then just shot out the anus. So
in your little poop submarine?
Yep. So, basically science-wise, you could not. And there's no way that he could have survived a whole day in the belly of a whale.
So my assumptions were correct.
Yes. But it's interesting to think about, isn't it?
So did they ever find out what really happened to the dude? Like how did he get bleached white?
Michael Jackson disease?
And why was he blind?
Helen Keller disease? I have no clue. They didn't really go into that in the
so he just came and told the story to people himself, or
yeah, I think so. But then again, like he had a crew. So it's like his crew would have to go along with it. It's like, okay, guys, we're just gonna tell everybody that I got eaten by a whale. I don't know why this is a thing.
But obviously I'm going home.
But let's just if anybody
and
tells
blind.
the truth, you're out of a job. No more fishing for you guys. So,
But Captain, how would you find me? You're blind.
yes.
How many times am I going to get just a yes today?
I don't know what to say to it. Anyway, all right. Well, yeah. So you cannot survive. So just don't be eaten by a whale, and you won't have to worry about it. So let's move on to our main topic of the day.
I went a walking in the woods one day, met me a Bigfoot.
And that's it.
And that's all they say.
Why did it just cut off like that?
Met me a Bigfoot.
Is that where it was supposed to cut off?
I don't know. Usually is.
You said from 17 to 29 seconds on there. That was 12 seconds.
Nope, that was on the whale song.
No, that one was... Or no, you said...
Yep.
Hang on.
Don't you fret your pretty little face, Alan.
No worries.
All right. While you're looking that up to confirm that I'm right, we'll just get into this. But it is actually kind of a catchy song because when I was trying to find the sounder, I listened to it a couple times to get the amount of time right.
Yeah.
And the rest of the night I was just like, ding, 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 ding. Met me a Bigfoot something today.
Nice.
We'll see if Alan ever finds the rest. Maybe we can play the rest or something later. But
I don't know why I did that.
It's good.
all right. But as we get into this, so I mean, Trav actually, it was you, right? Yeah, they came up with the idea of like, hey, let's do a Bigfoot episode because it's getting into October and it's not necessarily, like he said earlier, it's not necessarily a Halloween theme, but it's kind of
It's
like
the unknown.
yeah, it's like it's got that mystery, that monster concept to it or whatever. But as we started to look into it and I started to research a few things, I actually stumbled across a local Utah podcast by the name of Sip Happens. Reached out to them a little bit. I listened to one of their episodes. Their episode 10 actually has to do with Bigfoot. So I reached out to them just to verify, hey, would you guys be okay if I give you guys a little shout out and some credit for some of the stuff that I pull from you guys and reference on the show? So they said that would be fine. So that's what I'm going to do. But if you guys haven't before, it's called Sip Happens, SIPHAPPENS, in case you can't spell it. Apparently.
We never know with you if you can spell it correctly, but
That's true.
I'm sure they spell it correctly.
Most other people who have English as their first language know how to spell it. But yeah, but basically it's these two girls by the name of Renan and Katie who talk about conspiracy theories and paranormal topics and that kind of stuff. They have episodes from what I saw on Area 51, Ouija boards, and of course the Bigfoot episode. But one thing I thought was interesting is at the beginning, and again, we're not going to go into this in depth. If you want more information on it, go check out their podcast. But they did go through the history of Bigfoot a little bit. And they brought up the point of, hey, like Bigfoot is a thing that you see all over the world. It's not just like a local thing, obviously. Like no matter where you go in the world, people reference some kind of Bigfoot-like creature.
Bigfoot, Yeti,
Yeah.
abominable snowman,
Sasquatch.
So in America, we call it
Bigfoot,
yep.
or Sasquatch.
In Canada,
Sasquatch, Canada.
Is Canada Sasquatch? There we go.
So Sasquatch is Canada. Yeti
Alaska.
Alaska. Yep, that's not part of the U.S. Yeah, basically, but like Nepal, like the Himalayan mountains area. Yowie.
China.
Yowie. Yeah,
Australia. Good day, mate.
Gonna go up and check out the Yowie, eh?
Yeah, see? That sounds very Australian. Yowie. Australian for Bigfoot. Wait, say it, but because I can't do accents. I want to hear you say it.
You did fine, I guess. Yowie. Australia for Bigfoot.
Yeah. That one. Yowie. Wait, that sounded like perverse.
Yowie.
Wait, what?
Yowie.
Yeah. Yowie.
Okay. Okay. Just so
Okay,
you guys, if this is your
yowie.
first time listening, sometimes we just get really stuck on one word.
And or mostly like or an accent. Because Trav's good at accents.
Not all
Alan
the time.
can
like-
usually do accents, but I cannot for whatever reason. And like I just will start it. Like my accents always turn into like Asian accents. And
but the time that you try and do Asian accents, then it turns like British or
Yeah,
something. Like you
it's
can't.
weird.
You're not consistent.
okay. So what do you think they call them in Indonesia?
That's what we get? There's absolutely no way we can guess that.
Yeah, I have no clue.
You said, what do they call them in Australia? There's no way we would have come up with Yowie.
So in Indonesia, they call them orange pendik.
Yeah. No. Did you think
Orange.
that we were going to be able to even come close?
I was just curious what you guys would come up with. I figured you could come up with something creative. Like
I don't know anything about Indonesia.
I'm surprised you didn't come up with like Indo-Yowie
No, I would not have said that.
or Indo-Yeti
Or orange
Just because it's in
appendix.
Indonesia, it has to start with Indo.
or Indo-Sasquatch.
Indo Bigfoot.
Yeah, but it's orange pendik. And Paganda is the name for it in, just take a guess.
Uganda. Africa.
Somewhere. The
Africa
Nile.
somewhere. Somewhere in Africa.
Nigeria.
It's actually Iran.
Dang it.
But I agree with you. Like if I would have heard Paganda and that's all I heard, I would have probably guessed like China.
Yeah.
But that's only because of pagoda.
Wakanda forever.
Well, I thought Africa.
Paganda for
I just thought Africa because Paganda sounds like Uganda.
Well, that's what I said. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agreed.
No, you
We're
guys
on the same page.
I agree with you guys. Like but I would have never. I mean, Iran would have been far down my list of things I would have guessed. But yeah, so I mean, that's just
What do they call them in Wakanda?
don't know.
in Wakanda.
Okay,
Are you looking it up?
Oh,
Wakanda's not a real country.
Pulls his phone out. Like, I don't know. So what do they call him in Wakanda?
no, actually, that's not really what I was doing. I was pulling up one other thing in reference to, like I said, go check out their episode on Sip Happens, episode 10. It's interesting because one of the hosts of that show, I believe it was Renan, actually has a real life personal encounter with Bigfoot. So if you want to hear that, unfortunately, I've never had a personal encounter. Have you,
No.
Alan?
Nope.
Okay.
I mean, with a big foot.
They did have one other thing that I thought was kind of fun. So, like, as we just jump into this, I just want to see what each of our Bigfoot names were. So they had like a little chart on their social media that says, "What's your Bigfoot name?" So you just give me your month of birth and then the first letter of your last name.
June and C.
So June is Skunker. C is Whoops-a-lot.
Skunker whoops a lot.
That's your name. So, Alan, what are you?
November.
Booger.
B.
So Booger, Tree Peeker.
Booger Tree Peeker.
That's yours. That's your Bigfoot name. And me, I am September, which is Dodger. Also be Tree Peeker.
Dodger Tree Peeker.
So I'm dodging your freaking tree peeking, Mr. Booger.
Okay.
Meanwhile, we're Stinky over here. Skunker.
Skunker.
He does. He skunks and then whoops a lot. Advertises it to the world. We won't even get into what happened earlier today, but
We will not.
we don't have enough time on this podcast to even just in real time portray what happened. All right. So let's get into it. So as Trav mentioned earlier, we all watched a documentary on Netflix by the name of Discovering Bigfoot. Really, I mean, what's the criteria for me choosing this documentary? I went to Netflix, I typed in Bigfoot, and this was the only thing that came up.
You know what? There was so I watched that one, but there was another actually on there that I don't think you guys missed, and I watched it too.
Oh, on Netflix?
Yeah, and it's amazing because it's about this guy who like goes into the woods, and he actually does have an encounter with a Bigfoot, and you actually see it. He's got it on camera. He ends up taking the Bigfoot home to his family, and they name him Harry.
Okay.
He becomes just kind of like a member of the family. Stars John Lithgow.
Harry and the Hendersons.
Yeah, was he hanging out with some Henderson family?
Harry and the Hendersons. That's probably, I'm going to tell you right now, Harry and the Hendersons is more believable than this freaking documentary. And I am not a skeptic. In fact, before we get into this, let me just tell you that this whole episode, the purpose was not necessarily to portray like our beliefs. You know, like I'm not going to sit here and just tell you that, you know, I don't believe or I do believe. But what I can say is that, and what I told you, Dan, was, you know, there's just not, there's a lot of pictures, there's a lot of videos, but it's all not super clear. And so there's still like, if Bigfoot was a fact, then we'd know about it. But that's the point, is that it is not a fact yet. It's just one of those mysteries out there, and there's little bits and pieces everywhere that people are trying to use and say, well, this is evidence.
Yeah.
But so because of that, you know, I can't say for sure, you know, that I believe. But if it comes out tomorrow that somebody finds a Bigfoot and has actual evidence, I would not be the least surprised. Because it's not like I even think that all of the mysteries of the world are already known. So, I mean, there's a way that Bigfoots, that they can.
Yeah,
What is the plural for Bigfoot?
Bigfoots.
Well, like new species of animals are being discovered all the time. Like, dare I say, multiple per day. But usually, when we're talking about that, we're talking about like deep ocean type species or insects, like in the Amazon or something.
Dare you say that?
he does dare.
But
Multiple a day.
But you know,
we're talking about like tiny little bugs,
and organisms and things
and
like
that
that.
have like a tiny little variation.
But in
They
this day,
technically
like
are new species.
back forever ago, you know, before technology was a huge thing, or
I'll also throw plants in there.
But you know, it would probably be easier to just, you know, throw that belief out there, and for a bunch of people just be like, yeah, haven't seen it, but you know, just because I haven't seen it doesn't mean I can't believe it. Well, nowadays, I mean, you have so many scientists, hunters, trackers, military, technology.
Yeah, I was going to say the technology
Cameras
is a
everywhere.
huge
like
part of
everywhere. Like you go on YouTube and you can basically find impossible things caught on tape all the time. Like people are just in the right place at the right time and seem to have their phone out. And you're telling me that not one single person can catch like a non-blurry photo of this beast? Mm-hmm. And so
Even with the new iPhone that has 3 cameras?
3 cameras. And
Well, I
hopefully you're
guess
pairing it with the right
that is-
network.
That is a meme that's out there. But basically, it says maybe the problem is Sasquatch is just blurry.
That is true. He could be just freaking blurry.
So maybe they are clear pictures.
He's like the Predator, but instead of invisible, it's just blur vision or whatever, blur mode.
Anyway, so that's only as far as my skepticism goes. Just that like nothing has been presented that is like super believable, just because it's not fact.
And I think that's how we all. I mean, maybe Alan's different, but I think he's pretty much the same as me because he's very scientific minded and very process thought oriented as far as that goes. So yeah, I think I speak for all three of us when we say. I think it would be cool if they actually came out.
I would love
and
there
said,
to be a Bigfoot.
Yeah, there is actually a Bigfoot, and here's proof of it, and whatever.
Yeah, it would be like, to me, one thing I would love more than anything is for aliens to be real, like aliens visiting Earth.
Yeah, see, but
I
there
would
are
be obsessed
so
with that. I would be all
many
over it.
movies about aliens destroying Earth and killing us. There are not many about Bigfoot killing us. There's the one about Harry and the Hendersons, and he's the nicest creature.
But so I would be all for Bigfoot being real with real evidence. But like, as much as I want aliens to be real, and as much as I think like there could be a possibility that aliens are real, have they been to Earth? I would need facts. I would need like actual evidence.
Yeah, and I think that's where
Scientific evidence.
we all come down. I mean, the line is basically we're not like disbelievers because we just want to be skeptics.
Mm-hmm.
We just don't have a hard evidence, so then therefore we cannot assume that there really is Bigfoot. So I guess it's more the line.
And we'll kind of get more into this, at least into some of my thoughts as we talk about this not the podcast, the documentary. So yeah, tell us a little bit about the documentary.
So the documentary, first of all, and I think you guys had the exact same feeling on it, is you get into it, and my initial thought is like, is this legit or is this a farce? Like,
I thought
is this
it
like
was
a joke, or is this guy like really trying to make an actual documentary?
I thought it was satire.
Okay, so let me kind of explain to you folks who have not seen this why we immediately thought that it was satire. I mean, the guy, because it's, and I also don't know how it made it onto freaking Netflix. Okay, because it seriously is like this one dude. He's got a few cameras, and he's basically just filming everything himself. And then later on, he gets a couple of people to join him. But it's almost like he's just filming it with his phone, and then he's got maybe like a drone that's filming him too. But like first like couple minutes is just him kind of introducing himself, and it's got this music in the background. It's like ja-da-dunt, ja-da-dunt. And then meanwhile, this guy is dressed in all camo, and he's just like action shot, and he's like hopping across little streams.
Yeah, and just running, and then like jumping down hills.
Yeah, jumping down hills, and there's
that's like my first note on here is. Why does the creator of the documentary interlace a series of shots of him running through creek beds or traversing a snowy slope or driving his all-terrain vehicle through puddles?
It's another one.
And then it's not just the beginning though. It's throughout the entire documentary. Every few minutes there's just like 30
it's a little
to 60
montage
seconds
of him doing
these
shots.
Yeah, like running through more creek beds.
It reminded me of us in high school when we were making all these different movies,
and we just wanted to look
like
cool.
action, like let's just throw in cool music, and then I'll just like run, and we'll put it in slow mo, and that's basically what this was. And what was also funny to me was just that he's narrating this whole time too, and
he self-narrates.
He self-narrates, and he's telling everybody a little bit about himself, and he's like, I am an expert in camouflage, and then like there's a shot of just like a bunch of trees,
and then
all of a sudden he pops up in one of those like sniper outfits. And then like it goes to another scene where it's just now in the snow, and he pops up in another sniper outfit. It's just
that exact scene though with the snow. And I know we're getting off on a side tangent because we're supposed to be talking about Bigfoot, but we're just
we gotta talk about this guy. We're setting the scene.
Yeah. But like, I don't know if you guys noticed it, but it looked like because he buried himself to blend in with the snow, right? But his face was just completely covered.
Yeah, there's no
snow,
way he
like-
was actually looking at anybody.
He was just like, okay, just say action, and then I'm gonna pop up, but then I gotta hurry and get like it's so cold, I can't breathe.
I want to know in those situations who else like is actually filming him, because he's like, nah, okay, we're going back out to the wilderness. He's like, no, it's so dumb. Like, I'm tired of filming your action shots. But anyway,
So I'm glad that we noticed like some of the same things, but that was another question of mine, and another reason that was like hard to believe what he was saying all the time is because he says like, I go out on my own, I'm by myself. I mean, he makes a point to let you know, especially in some of the beginning scenes, that he's like by himself and he's exposed, And with that said, he will also have shots where he'll call them like different video clips. He'll be like, this is clip 6 or clip whatever, right? And then when he shows it, though, there's one towards the end of the documentary where he's like, I always take this one path when I leave because they always chase me out. And I go the same speed, but this time he runs so he can get down to like a blind spot so he can try and capture film.
His blind spot is literally a rock.
Like a teeny rock.
That he has to jump behind.
And it's like probably like 6 inches off the ground.
Yeah.
Like you still can see him.
It also kind of reminds me of like when he did it, you know, like when you're down in the basement, you flip the lights off and you hurry and run up the stairs and then you like get in your bed and you cover yourself in the covers. Like that's just what like reminded me of because he's like hurrying, running down. He's like, and this time I was running fast enough that I could hurry and get to the blind spot. So he's like, he just like sits there for a second.
Yeah, but then he like moves to go to another location to try and like, because he's like, I'm going to surprise him by backtracking a little bit to try and capture film of him. But this whole time he's supposed to be alone, but obviously somebody's following
recording
him with the camera because
somebody set up a camera at his blind spot.
It's not like
it's not from it's not from first person.
Yeah,
it's not a first person view. It's literally the camera was set up at the blind spot.
But then if it was set up at the blind spot,
it couldn't have been him because he didn't know that he was
the
gonna
camera
be right there.
couldn't have. I mean, unless the camera has legs. Had to pick up the camera and move with him when he ran over to the other spot because it wasn't. I mean, it was like a full on. It followed him over to the other spot. So I don't know.
Somebody else was out there. He was not alone.
Yeah. So these are some
and
of the,
it wasn't a Bigfoot. I mean, there might have been a Bigfoot, but there was also somebody else filming him.
Unless the Bigfoot works for him. He's like, this whole time, he just had to have you turn the camera around.
Okay. Action.
So your Bigfoots and your zombies sound very...
Nope, this one's a little bit more grunty. Go.
So zombie is...
Bigfoot.
Hey, you guys. And then Bigfoot's... Hey, no. You guys. Okay, so... But yeah, so I mean, obviously that sets up the scene for basically what the whole documentary was about. But I just want to jump into a couple of random scenes where I had some questions that came up. But one was the beginning, again, when I said that he is adamant, like, I'm all alone. He talks about how he has his infrared light on. So, like, you could see light in the camera because he's using, like, night vision or whatever. But he said you couldn't see any light.
One thing that I was going to say is, like, when I was watching it, I must have missed him when he said it was an infrared light. And so the whole time he's like, it's so, I can't see anything. It's pitch black dark. And I was like, there's a huge light right there that's on. And then I rewound it later and then I heard infrared and I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. So, and that's fine. I'm sure that was like...
It's pitch black except for this one light.
This giant light.
Super bright light. But this is the whole scene where, to set it up for anybody who hasn't watched it, basically he sets up 3 apples on a log. Apparently Sasquatch really like apples from what you would gather from this documentary.
That's one of the few things I took away is that, Sasquatch love apples. Like the Red Delicious, Granny Smith.
He always carries a bag of apples around with him. But yeah, he sets up these apples, but then supposedly the Sasquatch come, and there's several of them from what he's saying, because basically he's saying like one's distracting him, like the big male that he has to focus on, while another one, and then
the one that's just hunched
like
by a tree.
One that's like taking the apples from it, and you can see the apples be taken when he puts it in slow motion in the background. But who's to say that it's not just like his friend just hiding behind?
Well, and also the Bigfoot are supposed to be such huge people, and this log is laying on the ground, and all you see come up over the log, like, is a hand.
Yeah.
So it's like there's hand. Nothing else but this little hand that's grabbing these apples, and it's like, man, if the Bigfoot are as big as this dude's saying, like, they would be bigger than the log. Speaking of logs, there's also another scene where apparently a Bigfoot hucks an 80-pound log at him. And he's like, that moment is when the Bigfoot hucked an 80-pound log at me. And he just like was fine. It's like,
Well, I mean, you can see that the camera, like, it's almost like he doesn't want to break his camera. So he has like somebody's like, hey, drop this log. And then he like pretends, you can almost imagine him just like pretending to like shake the camera down towards the ground. And then he like lays it there so that it has like this weird scene of like it's like laying on the ground. But then he kind of like walks in front of the camera as it like, I was just struck by an 80-pound log. But yeah, exactly. Like no damage to him.
And
anything.
it was a very branchy log, like those logs that have like the sharp
Points.
broken branch things off the, like he would have been impaled.
Yeah. No,
Sorry, we're spending a lot of time
but I mean, this
pointing
is
out
kind of,
the holes in this plot.
But I think that's kind of the point of like, we're trying to like, it's fine if you want to try and prove Bigfoot's existence, right?
Yeah.
But the fact is, if this is the type of stuff that you get, that's why it's hard to believe. Because and the thing is, he goes to such lengths to try and explain, like, well, we're doing this a scientific process. We're doing this a scientific way. He brings on professors who are like PhDs from universities to try and prove to them that Sasquatch is real. And he's trying to like really legitimize his documentary. But in doing so, he leaves so many holes that it's very hard to believe because of some of these other things.
Well, in a sense, like the thing that I got from it too is just that although these professors from these accredited universities were willing to at least accept the idea that Bigfoot could be a reality,
could exist, they were still, I mean, they're scientists, so they're going to take that path of, I'm going to need proof. Like a hole in the ground that you say is a footprint is not going to be enough for me to say definitely. But he tries to push his agenda on them. In fact, there is a scene where they're analyzing some footprints. And so here, I'll set the scene a little bit too. So there's a couple of base camps that he takes them to that have a bunch of like logs or like I guess like tree branches that,
are pushed over into like a
teepee style, and so that's kind of like home base. So what they did was they put a bunch of apples on this on these tree trunks and things like that up high.
It was like literally just kind of parts of like stems, like sticks or branches of the trees that were broken
that kind of stuck the apples
like
on.
Shove the apple on.
And then in the middle of the night, apples are gone, when they come back and check it out. And so then the whole point after that is like they're trying to draw them in so that they can find the evidence of their trails, like and track them. And so they go back and they look for footprints and things like that. So he's got this professor and they're looking at these possible footprints. Like I'm not going to say they're not, but there also could not be. Like, I mean, just with what they were. And he's looking at these things and he's like, asks the professor, he goes, so where are these footprints headed? And the professor goes, that's a good question. And he immediately goes, well, to the apples. So he like has to force feed him the answers. And
well, then he like makes him like, okay, so this was the first step. This was the second step. Where's the third step? And then the guy would have to like look around. It's like, I think this could be a step.
Yeah.
He's like, okay, you walk it now. Like he had him like try to recreate.
It's like, go put your foot in
the
it.
steps, but the steps were only like in like maybe a 10-foot space.
Yeah.
But then he explained
they were also footsteps that the professor, who wasn't like a big guy at all, like could just walk in them. Like it's not like, I mean,
the stride.
Like, the stride. So like my stride, I'm 6'3". You guys are 5'8", 5'9", right? Or something like that.
Alan's like 5'10", 11.
5'10" and a half.
Okay. So you guys are there, like, not by much, but my strides are going to be probably bigger than yours. Or let's say my wife, she's a full foot shorter than I am.
Yeah.
So my strides are a lot bigger than hers. But so you imagine like this 8-9 foot beast or whatever they're talking about, their strides are going to be significantly larger than that of a normal human being. And this professor's just walking on them normal. Yeah. So I'm
not like he's having to stretch.
Yeah.
Well, so my issue also with these scenes with the professors and the footprints is if you really wanted to get evidence of a Bigfoot and you legit were there and you said these are Bigfoot footprints, the last thing you're going to do, which he does, is tell the professors to stick their foot in them and stomp and be like, oh, yeah, mess up that footprint good. So there's no way we can take molds and have scientific evidence later of these amazing Bigfoot footprints, right?
Yeah.
So he's literally having the professors destroy the evidence that he has of Bigfoot right on the spot.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, you stay away from those footprints. If it was me, nobody get it within 100 feet of this area. We're calling somebody. We're going to have a forensics team
tape around it.
Yeah.
And that reminds me of like another scene that he's showing the one professor that like, okay, this is like, I think this is like a child Bigfoot that stepped right here by this log, but you can tell it's a Bigfoot because so much pressure that it ripped the bark right off the side of this like fallen log, right? And stuff. And he's like, see, what happens when I step right next to, like, he stepped in the same location, just adjacent, in front of it. Yeah. So like he could show you what happens when a human would step there versus what a Bigfoot would do. And his foot went right down straight to the ground, just like the hole that was already there. And I'm like, that looks an awful lot like the hole that is already there. Like maybe you came here an hour ago and set this whole thing up.
Doesn't like the foot. Okay, we're talking a lot about footprints because that's about 80% of the show is them analyzing footprints. But there's also another one where he's like, look at this stick. It has a little bit of like mud on it, which means it was probably submerged in the ground. And it's not a big stick. Like if I stepped on it, like it would come out of the ground. It was
5 ounces.
Yeah, it is a tiny stick. And he's like,
I think his whole point was like, it was in the ground, something stepped here and like knocked it. But yeah, like what's to say it couldn't have just been any animal, really, like
or
a deer,
one of the professors, just walking around, or him.
But I mean, I will hand it to him. He's entertaining for. If he is like legit, like if this is like a legit thing, he's like really trying to do. He's very like confident in his skill sets because it's around that scene that he goes off onto a long spiel about how he is a very, very trained and very good tracker. He's been doing this for like 20 plus years.
One thing that got me,
and that the others, the professors, they're not. So they can't see the footprints that he's seeing.
Yep.
But they're there.
One thing that got me, that was, I think, in the beginning when he's introducing himself, and he's like, a trained sniper.
Yeah, it was.
And then he's like, trained tracker by the Cree Nation. Which, like, you think tracker, you think, oh, like the or like the Native Americans were like the best
Cree
trackers.
Nation.
But it was just hilarious that he thinks that like that's the credential that he needs to put in there. It's like the Cree Nation trained me in tracking. It's like that's like the most, I don't know how to say it. Like in movies, people say that.
It's just he's just been
like,
watching a lot
like
of movies.
This is a
So I mean, I will say this, and we've got some other stuff that we got to get to surrounding this, so we can't spend all of our time on this documentary. But the reason why the professors were actually willing to go out with him is because he has been able to produce some type of actual like video evidence of something. Now, to me, I mean, I'm not gonna say whether or not I believed it, in what he was showing was true. Like, because there was one that it was like that last shot that he showed of, I think they called it like
where he blinks.
Yeah, where he blinks.
Yeah.
So it was like, and it was a very real blink. But I mean, to me, that could have been. I mean, it looked a lot like a gorilla face. But I mean, I don't know. Like, and I'm not saying that a gorilla was out there. Like, you could have had a shot from
at the
zoo or something of a gorilla just between a couple of trees and staring, and then blinks. But then he's got some other Sasquatch faces that are in some trees that don't even look anything like that.
Yeah,
like not even the same, even near it. In fact, to me, they look kind of like that guy in Star Wars. Oh man, I don't even know his name, so I can't even do it. But he's kind of got like the little beady eyes and then like the big old lips, and he's like, but it's
very
in
good
one of the
description.
It's in one of the originals. I can't remember.
No,
his
I
name.
but surprisingly, I actually do know who you're talking about from that description.
Well,
go ahead, Al.
So, like, how are we doing the rest of the segment? Like, because I have a little bit list of like all the things that.
Yeah, so I was just going to go through a couple more things about the documentary, and then if I don't cover them, why don't you go over what you have? But these are just really quick. I just want your opinions on some of this stuff. So, what was up? Okay, so, and maybe I missed it, but another part, as much as he concentrates on the footprints, the other big thing that he concentrates on for the proof of Sasquatch is the fact that he'll find trees that have been broken.
This was the other thing, yes.
That will be broken in half about 8 to 10 feet up the trunk.
In fact, I say 95% of this documentary is him trying to basically prove that Sasquatch exists because of these footprints and these broken trees.
Yes, exactly. So, do they ever explain why this, like, broken trees like this are, like, why would the Sasquatch just be walking around just snapping a trees in half? Like, I don't know if I missed something or...
I mean, he said he witnessed it before, but he doesn't really talk about it. But I guess their point is that all the other trees around were fine. Nothing else was broken. So to them, that's like, all right, wind isn't going to come in, because if wind's going to come in and break some branches, they're going to urge some trees.
It'll break
several tree trunks, because these were also kind of like dead trees. But it's literally like, I mean, I think it was like 8 feet up, and it was snapped in a way that it's like if you were to take a twig or a stick in your hands and then break it in half, that's the way that it looked. And so you had the top of this tree that was leaning and broken in that manner.
Perfect 90-degree angle
and
snap.
I was talking to somebody at work today. Now, she's actually one of the reasons why I started thinking about this as an actual topic, because she was watching a YouTube video that talked about, Bigfoot and the possibilities, and she's definitely a believer in the fact that it is a possibility. But I was telling her that, like, it was interesting that he focused so much on these tree trunks that it's like, okay, wind didn't do it. There's no bear claws on the tree trunks, so obviously it's got to be a Bigfoot. It's like, okay, you eliminated 2 possibilities, but the third possibility is Sasquatch? So it was just interesting to me that...
And more than that, because I get what you're saying as far as he's like, well, I witnessed the Sasquatch do this. So that was, I guess, his premise of, like, why this is a thing, right? But why? From the Sasquatch's point... Why? I mean, is it just like Sasquatch have like anger management issues or something, and they're just like, "Oh, I've walked another 100 yards. I'm going to
tree. This one sucks."
But like, yeah, like I don't get what
purpose
is for a Sasquatch to break a tree in half.
There was some mention of that all the trees were always broken and they're pointing in the same direction or something like that.
Oh, maybe I missed that.
And I think there was a thing like that, but it's still, why? What is it pointing towards?
Toward Sasquatch is marking his way home. He's like, I gotta leave breadcrumbs and point. I mean, it's a big forest I'm in. I don't want to get lost.
And maybe that's it, because but it was just kind of interesting.
Like Bigfoot, Hansel and Gretel.
Yeah.
Another thing that I noticed, and I don't know if you guys noticed it, is towards the beginning of the documentary, he is actually, it's when he's first with the first professor that he goes out with, the professor from the Idaho State or whatever.
Yeah.
He mentions that he's 99% sure that they're in the forest with the Sasquatch, but he can't be 100% because he has to leave some room for doubt, right?
Yeah.
But then after that, throughout the rest of the documentary, he mentions that he's 100% sure about everything the rest of the way. So it's just kind of interesting that he's just like, he makes a point to be like, I can't be 100, you always have to leave that element of doubt. And then the rest of the way he's like,
yeah, I'm 100% sure.
I'm 100% sure that this was done by a Sasquatch. I'm just going to say
it was a Sasquatch.
But yeah, like he definitely has that. Like you said, he's always leading with his comments to try.
Yeah, it's kind of pushing his own agenda on everybody, and it's like, and I can just tell you, like when you're watching this, did you guys get the sense that the professor was just super awkward the whole time. Like he didn't want to say, like, he knew that this was for a documentary and he probably agreed to it and he thought this might be fun. But then he was like, oh, crap. Like, I got like some credibility at stake here. Like, I'm a freaking professor. Like,
it's just like somebody who's trying to be overly nice.
Yeah.
And tolerant.
Because
that's the other thing is there's the whole scene where the one professor, like, he's supposed to leave the next day, but by the light of the fire, he catches a glimpse of what he's like, could be a Sasquatch, right?
Yeah.
So if he legit was like, they're like flat out was a Sasquatch, if this would be like the find of the century for somebody, especially in his position, don't you think that he'd call and be like, God, dude, I'm like literally like so close to finding Sasquatch.
Yeah.
I'm going to stay for an extra couple days. But no, like he just like, I got to get up and go. My flight is leaving before morning. So
he probably had all of his stuff packed by midnight that night.
Get out of here.
Waiting for daylight because I got to get out of here. I got to leave.
But yeah, what do you have, Al? Did you have any other points or?
Well, it was just funny to me that every time he says that was like a Sasquatch that growled or whatever to my right, and then there was a third Sasquatch like to the left that growled, and you can hear these growls. He also was layering background music on top of the growls.
Yeah,
I don't know if you guys caught that, but I was like, if these are legit growls of a Sasquatch that you caught on tape, you're not going to layer music onto it just to make like the show more intense and be like, oh yeah, background music with these growls. No, you're going to like, we got to isolate that growl. Yeah, it's like you got to isolate the growl so that people can hear it, right?
Yeah.
So it's another thing of like you're destroying prime evidence that you supposedly have, and you're just destroying it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a moment where he like, you guys heard the term like white fanging. So it's like in White Fang when the boy doesn't
like the movie White Fang.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like he tells his dog he loves the dog, but it's better if the dog is not, or the wolf is not with him. So he like tells the wolf that he hates him. He's like, get out of here. I don't want you anymore. And there was a moment. And it's like when he said that, like he woke up and there was like a really aggressive one that was just throwing rocks at him, and he like gets up, he's like all pissed off. He's he lights this flare.
He's like, I had to pull out the big flare.
Yeah. It's like he pulls out a flare and he's like, "Get away! Get away from me!"
All right, so wait, because that's funny because that was one of the things I had on here. I wrote. Bad acting when yelling at Bigfoot when he was scared. Because it was like the worst. If you imagine somebody who's just like purposely acting bad.
Well, that, and if he's really scared, like if you're really scared for your life, why would you like stop, get the camera set up, press record, then light your flare, and then start yelling at the Sasquatch.
Anyway.
But there was one other spot that I was just glaring to me. So as Trav said, he focused on the footprints like for a huge portion of this documentary, right?
Yeah.
So there's the scene that he's with the second professor, and this is when he's saying, I could hear the Sasquatches. They were starting to surround us, and they were making noises and stuff. And the professor, unfortunately, has hard of hearing.
Oh, yeah.
And so he couldn't hear it at first. So I was like, listen, like, can you hear him? And it wasn't until they got closer, but he's like, there's one over there in those trees right there, and there's two of them coming down the road. And there's a super long, like straight, muddy road, right?
Yeah.
If there was two Sasquatches walking down this road, supposedly, wouldn't that be the first thing you would check in the morning to be like, we should have some prime Bigfoot footprints in the mud on the road where these two Sasquatch were apparently walking straight towards them.
Yeah. So I think, again, we sound skeptical. It's only because this was not a great documentary.
Yeah, no, it's the documentary
but that's kind of one of the problems that we're getting at, is one of the reasons why it's so hard to believe in something like this is because there's so many inconsistencies out there. And you have so many people who want to prove it, but they focus on the wrong things. And maybe it's just because they're just dreaming and dredging up stuff. But there are a couple of other things that we've gone through, at least as far as our research goes, for this podcast episode. So do you want me to jump into the?
Yeah. So I think what we want to do now is just, now that we've kind of set up the groundwork of why it's very frustrating, because this is the kind of source material that's out there for the most part. Blurry pictures, documentaries that never go anywhere. I think there's like a Finding Bigfoot documentary on like Animal Planet. I've watched maybe 1 or 2 episodes, but from what I gather, from what I hear from people, it's like they never find him.
Yeah. Well, there's a show about it. It's like got various seasons of them trying to find
They're
Bigfoot.
like almost 100 episodes in. Or something.
And what they do is they go from town to town, and they go to like these, and they're these little towns enough that, or I guess little enough to where like people still go and meet at a town hall. It's kind of like Pawnee, Indiana, in Parks and Rec, where they all go and they still meet, and so they gather these people and they ask them, like, has anybody ever had an encounter with Bigfoot, Sasquatch, or whatever you guys want to call them, and then they take these accounts and then they kind of pick, like in each episode, like 1 or 2 of them that they find are credible, and then they go and kind of explore those areas. And a lot of it's just a bunch of like them. It's always them out in the middle of the night, like clanking sticks. They're just like, and guess what? 100 episodes or so, and they still haven't found one. So
it should be called Never Finding Bigfoot.
Never finding him or her.
But but basically the direction we want to take this in is, if we had to try and explain, okay, why do we not have any definitive proof? Maybe these are a couple of the things that we're going to get into now briefly are a couple of potential reasons, I guess you could say, that may be the reason that we can't find definitive proof on Bigfoot. And so the first one is basically that the government is covering it up. It's all conspiracy as far as the government goes. And that's what Trav's going to cover and get into for a couple
You're
minutes
never
here.
going to have something like this, like a Bigfoot, the Loch Ness Monster, or the Chupacabra, the Jersey Devil, whatever you want to call it, without having there be some type of connection with the government.
That's what I was just going to say.
Like,
It's going to be like, what interest does the government have in Bigfoot?
I don't know, but there is the idea out there that for whatever reason, the government is heavily involved in making sure that these creatures are kept under wraps. And maybe it's because they are just so, they're so important. And they're very kind creatures. That's what we've heard. They're very kind creatures, and just they want to be left alone. And the government knows about them just like they know about aliens, but they're just making sure that, because what happens if it gets out? It becomes this huge frenzy. I mean, right now you just have a bunch of locos going around in the woods, risking their lives to find something that may or may not exist. But if it actually really did exist, can you imagine the frenzy that it would be? Just everybody's going camping now.
I'm finding Bigfoot.
Like, I'm going up there in those mountains.
Which is true, but if you really think about it, like, the government isn't some kind of like non-personal entity or something. I mean, the government is literally just a bunch of people. So that's the thing when it comes back to government conspiracy. Sometimes it's like, why would these thousands of people that work for the government be like, oh, we're just going to keep our mouths shut?
So that actually takes me into this story that I'm about to tell. Because like the biggest one that I could find, like there's a story out there about this guy who's part of like this Bigfoot Research Foundation that reached out to the FBI to have them analyze some hair and some skin, because they analyzed it and couldn't, figure it out. It was no known species in this continent, that there was a match to, and then they send it to the FBI, and there's this big old back and forth, and you can actually go online and read these FBI letters back and forth from this guy, and then it comes back later that it's like it's just white-tailed deer. so
I heard about that somewhere.
Was it actually white-tailed deer? Was it a cover-up? That's the question that people are obviously going to ask. I don't know why the FBI would be like, man, you really got to tell them that this is white-tailed deer. But So just let them know. But no, the one that I'm talking about here is back in 1980. There was the huge eruption of Mount St. Helen, and it caused, a huge landslide. I mean,
the side of the mountain,
slid off, and it was like this huge deal, right? And I mean, there were I think they reported that 60 humans died from it, but that the biggest thing was just wildlife. I mean, that's where it was.
I mean, an entire mountain slides part, it's going to affect a lot of wildlife.
If you haven't, I would recommend you go to YouTube and you watch actual footage of it, because it's mind-boggling to see literally the entire side of a mountain come off.
Yeah. So that area, I guess, has always been known to be like a nest for Bigfoot sightings, and so after the eruption and all the chaos had settled, you had the what was it? It's the United States Army Corps and engineers that were going in, and their job was to basically go in and start cleaning up the forest area. I mean, you had a lot of dead animal carcasses all over, and they were just piling them up. They were picking them up in nets, connecting it to, because obviously you can't get vehicles up there, so they're connecting them to these helicopters and they're lifting them out and everything. And let me just pull this up really quick so I can just kind of read you what it said. So there are stories that the entire operation to recover possibly 5 or 6 Bigfoot from the pulverized remains of Mount St. Helen was coordinated by the United States Army Corps and engineers. So the USACE, which is the short term for, or the acronym for it, notes that its role is to deliver vital public and military engineering services, partnering in peace and war to strengthen our nation's security, energize the economy, and reduce risks from disaster. So in other words, the USACE would indeed have been the ideal body to have played a central role in these recoveries. So basically, there were some witnesses that all of a sudden started seeing these helicopters taking off, and in these nets they had these hairy beings that were just there, and they're like, holy crap, those were freaking Bigfoots. But
could they see them clearly, or could it just be a mass of several deer?
I don't know. See, that's the thing. Your mind sees what it wants to see, right? Yeah. It may be, it just may be a clump of things, and they're like, oh man, that looks almost like a human, but a very hairy human. So, so in 2012, a story surfaced from a former National Guardsman who maintained that he was actually on site at some of the Bigfoot recoveries where they occurred. Undercover and extensive, and everything was undercover and extensive secrecy, because, why would they want, they don't want people coming up and doing all that. But anyway, so there was a lot of claimed, dead bodies from the Bigfoot, but there's also a part where he walks into this tent and there are a couple of alive but badly burnt Bigfoot that the Army Corps were helping and aiding. And apparently there were also reports from this guy that there were other alive and well Bigfoot members of their family members that were aiding the Army Corps into showing them where they need to go to help find and rescue other animals and other Bigfoot and things like that. So that's just kind of the story that surfaced just a few years ago. I mean, well, it was 7 years ago, but the thing that it talks about is that since then, all of the people that were involved in that cleanup, none of them actually came out and said, yeah, oh yeah, because you think that somebody's gonna say something, especially if they knew that they could get tons of money. They're going to say something, and it's only this one man that is saying that it actually happened. Yeah. So that's where the problem lies. You could have a government cover-up, but not everybody's going to shut their dang mouths.
Yeah. I mean, just look at politics in general. Like, nothing stays a secret forever.
Yeah.
So why would these things specifically stay secrets?
Yeah. So that's just one reason why we may not know about them, is because maybe the government is heavily involved in it. But I don't know.
Yeah.
What about you, Dan?
So an alternate theory out there is basically that Bigfoot or Sasquatch is actually an interdimensional being and is not actually kind of like a giant ape that just resides here in his flesh and blood 24/7 on Earth, and that's why we basically can't find them. So a man by the name of John Keel, he apparently was the author of the Mothman Prophecies, was the first to coin a term called ultra-terrestrial, which basically means that it's beings from a parallel dimension is what ultra-terrestrial means. But since he kind of came out with that theory, now you have the Bigfoot community that's split into two facets, right? So you have one side that's like, nope, Bigfoot is just a giant ape that hides in the mountains. It's just a matter of like, we just have to find him and capture him or find a body or something like that, right? And they are very upset with the other side who thinks that they're interdimensional beings or ultra-terrestrials. And to me, the first thing that came to mind was that's like the kettle, or that's the proverbial kettle calling the kettle black.
Pot calling the kettle black. What's the proverbial kettle calling the kettle black?
Yeah, I knew I was getting that wrong. I was like, I swear it didn't say kettle twice. But yeah, I mean, but basically it's just these two facets. Neither one has definitive proof of their theories, but they're fighting amongst each other, instead of what probably would be more helpful is if they work together and try to find scientific proof. But there was another, it's not a documentary, it's more of like a talk that I found a video of on YouTube. I will be the first to admit I did not watch the entire thing. It was almost 2 hours long.
Oh, yeah.
But I just started watching it, and I ended up watching the first 30 to 45 minutes or so. But at that point, I'm fairly certain I got the gist that the guy was now just going into like more personal stories and stuff like that. But the first section was more him describing to everyone that they are, in fact, these interdimensional beings. With one facet, I don't understand this. Like, if we go back to it, the dude that was in the documentary that we watched, how would you describe his hairstyle?
Business in front, party in the back.
Yes. This professor was like in a suit. He was like talking. The first shot you see is him from the front, and you just see like he looks kind of like a professor. But then it goes to a side shot of him, and he's got a ponytail. Like in the back, and so I'm like, why?
Stereotypical Bigfoot researcher.
Why do all the Bigfoot researchers have ponytails? That is the real mystery. But no, so I mean, he talks about in his speech or whatever that the Sasquatch are indeed these interdimensional beings that travel between dimensions. He said that basically there are these different groups. So there's like the main interdimensional Sasquatch, and you can recognize them because they have longer faces and their arms like extend down past their knees. So like that's the main ones. He also describes them as 100 times more advanced than we are as humans, and they are more human than humans.
Oh,
that's an exact quote from him. How is more human than humans.
Okay.
So this crayon, it's more red than red.
This crayon is more crayon than crayon.
And I mean, I think he tries to explain afterwards. He's like, because like they're just so much more understanding and they don't kill each other and
like there's no hate.
Like,
is that like?
But it's still funny because you can't be more human than a human.
Yeah,
because
it's like an oxymoron.
Part of being a human might be having flaws.
Yeah,
But I just found that interesting and kind of comical. But then he also says there's another group. They're called the Ancient Ones. They have rounder faces and their arms are more proportional to their body, much like about the same proportionality as human beings have as far as our arms to our bodies. But he said the women in the Ancient Ones group are actually very, very attractive to the point that they actually could win Miss America pageants.
What? This guy's got a fetish. That's all I'm saying. He's got something going on there.
I mean, as far as I know, I didn't see any pictures. He didn't even have any pictures as part of his presentation, but that's what he said, is like they're very attractive. There's another group called the Guardians. These are more werewolf-looking Bigfoot, and their job is to guard the interdimensional portals that the main group of interdimensional Sasquatch use to travel back and forth between dimensions.
Oh.
So I guess they're more just there, like if you try to get into one of the portals, good luck, because you're going to get attacked by a Guardian.
That's why we never see Bigfoot, because as soon as you are getting close to one, they're like, open up a portal. They're like, wow, and they're just like, just right
they
through.
Just slip right through, and then you're like, that's why you're like, you catch a glimpse, but you're like, wait, what was that? And then it's gone because it's already through the portal.
Although I feel like I would probably notice a big gaping hole in reality.
In the space-time
continuum before, like, oh, check it out, Bigfoot, freaking A, there's a freaking hole in the
Space-time
just nothing.
Yeah, pretty much.
Interdimensional portal.
And then finally he said there's a fourth group. They're called Stick Indians. And these are very slender beings that were dropped off here on Earth by spaceships. And there are 6 of them in Kauai and 12 of them in Maui. I don't know why.
Like they still exist?
Yeah,
like
they're
just living?
They're in Kauai and Maui.
Okay.
Doing something, like, I think he was trying, I don't know. Like, honestly, there were
there's 6 of them in Kauai. How many in Maui?
12.
12 of them in Maui. Coincidentally, they all own little shaved ice huts.
It's the weirdest thing.
And barbecue
but
pork.
they like milk on their snow cones. I think it's super weird, but like
whatever.
coconut milk or something. But
So, what's it called again? Is it Occam's razor, or what's the principle that, like,
But it's
the
basic.
no, not Occam's razor. The principle where, like, the simplest
answer-
explanation or simplest answer is normally, like, going to be the correct answer.
Yeah.
or something like that.
It's Occam's razor.
Oh, it is Occam's razor.
Yeah,
This
the
just seems
simplest
like-
explanation is the correct explanation.
This just seems like you took a Bigfoot, which could have been a relatively simple explanation, and you just we're going to add layers and layers of just ridiculousness.
yeah.
And,
So that's the other thing is that
and complexity,
complexity.
and then that's going to be the correct theory of what's really going on.
Well, I mean, we've talked about this with other theories before, but it does sometimes seem like someone comes and starts a theory, and then somebody asks a question, and then I think Alan's way of describing it was like, wait, hold on, let me think about it for a while, and then they come back the next day and they're like, okay, so then this is also what happens. Like, I think it was like with the flat earthers or something like that, right? So, yeah, sometimes, I mean, the amount of complexity that they get, because now it's like not only are these like these interdimensional beings, but they're tied with UFOs and like all these different things, right?
They were dropped
What
off
are
by
they? Are they
spaceships.
Bigfoot? Are they aliens? Like, what do you want?
Yeah.
And so he also says there's 7 different races of Bigfoot all over the world. He doesn't specifically go into them, other than he says they can range anywhere from 3 to 12 feet tall. So there's little Bigfoot and there's big Bigfoot, apparently. He says that some of the Sasquatch have been known to be cannibals by Native American tribes, but that is because these Native American tribes were at war with the Sasquatch, tried killing them, so the Sasquatch decided that if we ever catch one of them, we're just going to have them for dinner. And then he cracked a joke, something like, I mean, why do we need to go out? Because we got food right here.
Okay.
And then there was a little chuckle from the crowd.
Just like a slight, like,
Like an uncomfortable, like, what?
like I thought, like, when are we gonna get our free hotel room? I thought this was like a timeshare thing. I didn't have to listen to this guy talk about freaking alien big feet.
When they said timeshare, I didn't know we had to share our time with this man.
This is ridiculous. Where's the buffet?
But yeah, he says that another reason that people don't see the Sasquatch very often is because the Sasquatch don't trust us. And they also, because he talks about the whole, like, basically it doesn't matter how much proof you have via like video or photos, right? Like no one's going to believe it until you produce a body. Well, for Sasquatch, their bodies are very sacred to them, so they're never going to allow like one of their bodies to be found. They're always going to take the bodies and move them into like back through the interdimensional portal, apparently. And then also he lets you know that Sasquatch can communicate telepathically, which is something that he does with the Sasquatch. And when he's telling the stories, it's kind of entertaining. Like I said, I kind of stopped after about 10 minutes though, because it was kind of just like the same thing. But he's just like, and then I got in my car, and then they started communicating with me telepathically again, and they said, "Hey, yo, we're in a UFO above you. You can't see us. We're cloaked,
but we're here.
But we're right above you. We're gonna follow you to your friend's house,
and then we're gonna egg his house."
And then and he's like, "Okay, thank you."
Call.
This is interesting. So, I mean, I will post a link to this this video as well in the show notes. But
so this guy is also schizophrenic.
It's very interesting. I don't know how to explain it other than it literally looked like for much of his talk that I saw that he was making it up on the spot. You know how when people are like making stuff up, they have to pause a lot and to think about like, where am I going next with this story? But that's kind of how I thought, or how it looked. But and then finally, I mean, just some food for thoughts. Again, it goes back to the whole clear picture thing. These people will, I mean, is there some kind of like energy or interdimensional source that's causing all these pictures to either like be blurry or for the camera equipment to fail and not work anymore? That's just one thought of like why we can't catch it. Another theory is that parallel dimension that they hide in. Do you remember when we talked about the lizard people?
Yes.
Several episodes ago?
Yes.
How they apparently can vibrate in such a way that like you see a human, but they're really like a lizard.
Yes.
Because
that is
like
an amazing, amazing power. I'm going to vibrate into another being.
But in a way, they're like hiding in like a different dimension or something like that.
You can always still tell that they're a lizard person, even though they look like a human being, because they sound like, I am Mark.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like they're talking through a fan.
But yeah, so like
Dad's name's Mark.
I know. Where do you get that from?
I don't know. It's just the first name that popped in my head.
So there's a theory that they're maybe not like from like a completely different dimension altogether, but instead they are from like a dimension that's just like, in essence, super close and parallel, but they can kind of just like hide in there briefly if they need to, like out of sight. So basically it's like a spatial dimension that they can go into that we can't perceive as human beings, and they can hide. And so maybe they are like literally standing next to you, but you can't see them because they're in like a separate spatial dimension.
Like the spirit world.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's just interesting. There's like all kinds of stories out there of how these Sasquatch can obviously evade you and avoid being detected, or whether it's the help of the government covering it up, you know. But again, that's hard to believe because you would literally have to have thousands of people keeping the secret.
Yeah.
And we all know that a group of just a few people have a very hard time keeping a secret, let alone a group of like 1,000 people, you know?
Yeah.
And so, and there's like one final like interesting weird story, but there's a guy named by the name of Dallas Gilbert who claims that Bigfoot can communicate with him telepathically as well. And they taught him the sacred Bigfoot language, and he can use that to summon the Sasquatch when he speaks it. So he claims that at one point in time he was out there.
Is the language just whistling?
I know that was a thing from the documentary.
I actually had that on my list. It was like, why in this documentary, why does he keep just whistling at the Bigfoot.
Yeah. He's like, I'm super scared right now. But this guy apparently stepped into and through accidentally a Bigfoot portal. And
I hate when that happens.
And found himself standing in a prehistoric world, which is apparently where the Bigfoot are originally from. My question was twofold. One, how did the Guardians not catch him first? Because shouldn't they be protecting the portals?
And two.
And two, how did he get back?
Yep, that would be my question. He's like,
To tell this
what
tale.
is the language that they speak? Well, I don't know a lot, but it goes a little something like this: ooh ee, ooh ah ah, ting tang, walla walla, bing bang.
And then he shrunk my head.
So, well,
You know, whenever I find myself accidentally stepping into a prehistoric world, I don't go anywhere near those butterflies.
nope, would not do
Not
it.
even close.
Butterflies, am I
Butterfly
forgetting?
effect.
Oh.
Because then you step on a butterfly and then the whole future's changed.
That's right. Okay.
So we're going to end here, but before we do, just a little preface into a couple weeks from now, we're going to have an episode which we are calling Scary Stories to Tell on a Podcast, where we are going to be writing some scary stories and reading them here on the podcast. But we're throwing a little curveball out here. Like, we're not just going to be able to just make something up completely. We're going to have some things that are kind of forcing
Almost
our
like, yeah.
hand.
Almost like a hybrid Mad Lib situation.
Yeah. So we're each picking from a bowl here, two persons, two places, two things.
And how we came up with that, Trav, is just the fact that they're all nouns.
Nouns. Makes
Types
it
of
easy.
nouns.
And these things that we pick, we have to include in our story. And the story isn't going to be that long, maybe like a page and a half or something like that. But these things have to be in it. So we're going to write the stories, and then we're, like I said, we're going to read them. But then we also kind of want to post something out there so that you guys can let us know which one you think was the scariest or the best story told.
Are we?
So-
is there like any length that we're talking? A certain length,
Like
that
a
we're
page
talking
and a
about?
half, 2 pages.
We're thinking total like read time between 5 and 7 minutes.
Okay.
Or something like that. So yeah, a couple pages.
Knowing us, we can take a 5 to 7 page or 5 to 7 minute story and turn it into like a half hour.
Yeah.
But that's just our gift.
But we figure if we can even keep it to 15 minutes each, that's 45 minutes of material, and that's about what we want to shoot for a segment like that. So, but basically, to preface how we got these things, I literally went online and Googled random things lists and random people's lists, and there's actually algorithm like based things that are out there that you just click submit and it'll like randomly generate like things or people. And then for the places, I just found a interesting article that said the top 20 weirdest places on Earth. So then I just took a handful of those and incorporated them in here. So we're going to each pick 2 things, 2 places, and two people, and those are the things that we're going to have to incorporate into our story. So Trav, do you want to do the honors and pick right now? The first thing we're going to be pulling is things.
Okay.
So what's your first thing, Trav?
First thing is headphones.
All right, he has to incorporate headphones. Second thing.
Next is a drill press.
Oh, man, I wanted that one. You can make scary things out of headphones and drill presses. Okay, Alan, pick 2 things out of this bowl. This is very, very technical work that we're doing here on the podcast.
The first thing is a balloon.
All right.
That ought to be relatively easy.
I know where you can go with that story.
Second one is packing peanuts.
Man, you guys are getting all the good things.
Really?
I don't know.
Where
Like
you-
I said, I just randomly generated 10 random things. All right. So, Danny, pick. Okay. I mean, yes, I will.
So dumb.
My first thing is a cork.
Did you pick 2?
My
You didn't do what we did and just pick 2 at the same time?
Alan didn't. Is whiteout. This is going to be difficult. I feel
Danny's
like
just such a throw Alan under the bus type person. Alan didn't.
All right. So the next thing.
Wait, what were yours?
so. Mine is cork and whiteout.
Okay.
So yes, if you look at the different lists, balloon packing peanuts, I can do scary stuff with that. Headphones drill press, I could do scary stuff with that. Cork and whiteout, have no clue.
I would like to know what you're doing scary with a packing peanut.
You can pack stuff. Okay, the next thing.
How long are you gonna just? They're mixed up enough.
He's mixing up 10 pieces of paper like it's...
All right, the next is people.
All right, first is Harrison Ford.
Oh, lucky.
Ooh. And next is Joe Montana.
Lucky.
I can make something scary with Harrison Ford and Joe Montana.
Your story's like freaking writing itself. All right.
He's mixing them up, but he has to do it over his head so that you're not even the one choosing.
Alan, who are your people?
My peeps are Emma Watson.
Oh, lucky.
Hermione.
And Demi Lovato.
What?
I could totally work them into a story.
It has to be appropriate.
No, I was saying like maybe they're friends. Emma Watson and Demi Lovato, they could totally be friends, right?
Yeah, sure.
Like they couldn't be friends with anyone else.
Like Harrison Ford or Joe Montana, that's a stretch for them to be friends.
I don't know.
They're like the same age. Well, I think Harrison Ford might be older. All right, my people, Stephen Hawking.
Lucky.
I can't make anything scary out of this.
When you write it, and you write anything that Stephen Hawking says, you have to read it like Stephen Hawking.
And Jennifer Lopez.
Oh.
That's an odd pair.
Yeah, I don't see how they could be friends.
Who says they have to be friends, though, in my story? All right, finally.
It's already mixed. It does.
Places. Trav, what are your places?
All right. I got the Giant's Causeway in Northern Ireland. What the heck?
Lucky.
The what?
The Giant's Causeway in Northern Ireland.
I don't know what that is.
So, just a reminder about this. You guys have to research what these places are so that you can describe them as part of your story.
Got it.
Okay.
Next is Spotted Lake in British Columbia, Canada. Why do we have to do two places?
Because it's going to make it more interesting to see how you transition from one of them to the other. So somehow you got to go from Ireland to British Columbia in your story.
Or vice versa.
Yeah, or vice versa. Alan, your places are...
The Bermuda Triangle,
Lucky.
North Atlantic Ocean. I like how you had to write where the Bermuda Triangle is. In case
Some
you don't
people
know,
might
North
not know.
Atlantic Ocean. The Nazca Lines, Peru. Oh, I think I know what that is.
Are those like
all those
like pictures in the ground that you can only see from an aerial view? Is that what those are?
I think so. They're kind of like, yeah, like the...
Are they?
Like the alien type of whatever.
Yeah.
How do you spell that again? I can't remember.
Nazca is NASCA.
Just guess. It's not like we need to know exactly what how it's spelled to do this.
Okay, Danny, what are your places? Well, my first place is Socotra Island in Yemen.
That's how it's said.
I guess I'm going to Yemen.
Socotra.
My story sucks. All right. Second place, Thor's Well in Oregon, USA.
Thor's Well?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, now that we've done that, so just, be ready for apparently some weird stories coming up. I don't even know if they're going to be scary.
Yeah. So decide for
We're going to be
yourself.
so worried about making sure that we get these two locations in that we're not going to know what's going on. But
So decide for yourself. Would you rather have Balloon, Packing Peanuts, Emma Watson, Demi Lovato, Bermuda Triangle, and Nazca Lines as a story to write from? Or Headphones, Drill Press, Harrison Ford, Joe Montana, Giants, Causeway, Spotted Lake? or Cork, Whiteout, Stephen Hawking, Jennifer Lopez, Socotra Island, Thor's Well.
I really want Stephen Hawking. Like, I'll trade you.
I can tell you from this that I am going to have the most difficult time coming up with a scary story, while the other two have stories that have written themselves.
Sure. All right, there you have it, guys. Thanks for tuning in this week. We did go a little bit long, but hopefully you enjoyed it. And let us know what your thoughts are on Bigfoot. Do you believe? Do you not believe? Like, I mean, if you've had some type of maybe close encounter or something that you feel is relevant to what we talked about today, let us know. Catch us on our social media pages, which Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and that's at QCode Podcast. We also have a website at QCodePodcast.com. And then, follow us or subscribe to our YouTube page, and you can catch us there as well. So make sure that you leave us 5 stars and a review, and just interact with us. Ask us questions. If you'd like to hear us talk about something that you're interested in, just let us know. But again, thanks for listening to us, and we will catch you next week.